Hello everyone, my name is Anita and you're welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I like to make my jollof rice. So let's start with the tomato paste. This is my preferred brand. It's not an ad, but I like that they have pepper and onions and the flavor is just amazing. Now let's move on to our peppers. This typically is the ratio that I like to use, which is 3/4 part pepper and 1/4 part tomatoes. So the first item I'll be picking up here are the red bell peppers, also known as Tatashe here in Nigeria. And then the next item is the red chili peppers, also known as Shombo. Now Shombo can be equally hot, so you need to be careful with the next item, which are Scotch bonnet peppers, Atarodo. You need to take it or use it based on your level of heat. Now the last part of the reds are the tomatoes, which as you can see makes up only about 1/4 of all the reds we have laid out. So the next items are my onions. So that's the beginning of my aromatics for my jollof rice. I absolutely love onions. They're my best part of jollof rice, and I use 2 large bulbs for this recipe. Now let's move on to more aromatics. I have ginger and I also have some garlic. I typically will use about a thumb of ginger for the quantity of rice that I'm making in this recipe, and then about 3 large cloves of garlic, and that about does it for my ginger and garlic. Now let's talk about the rice. I'm using 5 cups of regular rice, not basmati or jasmine rice, and it has been thoroughly washed. Now this is what the water for your rice looks like when it's thoroughly washed. Clear and clean. I don't need to parboil. I just wash over and over with hot water and cold water, and it's ready to be cooked. Now the next thing we're going to talk about in this recipe is flavoring your oil, which is a very essential part of the recipe to building the right flavor. Now as you can see, I added some rosemary, some thyme, some ginger and some garlic to just my oil. I would leave it frying for a bit and then I would add some onions. This process is called flavoring the oil, and I've talked about it before on my channel. I put in the aromatics into the oil to build the flavor so that I have a good foundation for my jollof rice. I leave this frying for a bit until my onions is about translucent, and then I add in my tomato paste. I put my tomato paste in and then I fry it in the already flavored oil, and it's just a flavor bomb from here onwards. The flavor in my kitchen is amazing. The flavor from the oil is great, and trust me, it makes a world of a difference. So I fry my tomato paste for somewhere around 5 to 7 minutes, stirring consistently because I don't want it to burn, especially because I'm using a cast iron pot. And then I put in my blended pepper mix. Now as you can see, this pepper mix has been blended and boiled down, so there's no more liquid in it. Now I have a video for how I blend and boil and store my pepper mix down on my page, so you can go down to be more informed. Now once I add this to my oil, I continue the frying process for a few minutes and then I season it. As you can see, I'm going to go in with some curry, with more rosemary, and then some thyme. I'm also going to add some nutmeg, which I think is absolutely necessary for jollof rice, and then my seasoning cubes. You want to be careful when seasoning because you still have your meat stock that is properly seasoned. I add some salt and then I stir and leave it to fry. Now the next ingredient I'm going to add is super optional, but for the purpose of this recipe I would just add it because I know some people have it in their kitchen, and yes, I use it sometimes as well. It's called Jollof Seasoning, and you find it with different brands. I add about a tablespoon of it and just stir it in. It typically has most of the seasonings that I've already put in, but it's okay to use it in moderation as well. If you look on the label, you'll see it has some nutmeg, some cinnamon, some garlic, some ginger, and just, an array of most of the things have already been put in here. So it's not entirely necessary, but if you have it, you might as well use it. I fry this for somewhere between 10 to 12 minutes, and when I see that it's properly fried, I now go on ahead to add my rice. Now my next step is something that people don't usually do, but I love it and I love the result that I get with it. I add my rice to my very flavored stew and I stir it for about 5 minutes on low heat, kind of like I'm frying the rice in the pepper mix. I feel like it helps me bind my rice and my sauce, but it's very optional. you remember that your rice is not parboiled but thoroughly washed. Now I just fry it for a few minutes, somewhere around 5 minutes, and when I'm good with that, I move on to my next step. Now that I believe I have my rice where I need it to be, I add some stock. I'm using some old layer chicken stock and I find it very flavorful for this recipe. However, that's not entirely all that I'll be using. Now remember that if you're using chicken or turkey stock, it's filled with a lot of oil. So you want to also leave room to add some water. If not, the liquid that you've added will be too thick and it will make it difficult for your rice to boil because you don't have enough water to evaporate. You have more oil than you actually have water. So I add some chicken stock and then I add some water and I'm ready to go. I add enough water just to cover the top of the rice, and it's okay, you're going to cook on low heat, so you're relying mostly on the steam of the heat to cook the rice, not particularly the water. Remember that with jollof rice, the more water you add, the more your rice swells and it just doesn't look pretty. At this point, I add my bay leaf for added flavor and we're ready to go. Now let's talk about covering the rice. If you have a Dutch oven like I do that seals tight when covered, you can use just that. However, if you don't, you can use a foil paper first and then your regular pot cover. My Dutch oven seals tight so it's air shut, but for the purpose of this video, I would just be using the foil to show you how to wrap your jollof rice properly to make sure that you don't have steam escaping. At this point, I leave my rice to cook unbothered until done. I open it and it looks something like this. If you see some stew on top, that's okay. You just stir it in. I personally like to remove my bay leaf. Then I add some butter and just cover it for the butter to melt, not to cook any further. And once the butter is melted, I stir it in and my jollof is just about ready to go. The flavor is amazing, aromatics great, and the grains are single just as I like it to be. You can see that even with the steam, I'm not struggling with my grains at all. So at this point, I garnish as I like. I put in some onions and spring onions because I absolutely love them in jollof rice, and I'm ready to go. I see some people also like to add some sliced tomatoes. However, I don't because tomatoes are somewhat sour and they have liquid and it adds extra moisture to my jollof rice. But if it's something that you like to do, you might as well go on and knock it out the park. This is how I make my very flavorful jollof rice. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Try this recipe and let me know if you get a good result. Until next time, please subscribe, like my videos, and turn on the notification button so you know when I get to post more videos. Bye guys.